the world's most strategic waterways.
After weeks of negotiations, Iran and Oman are moving toward a new framework for commercial shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. Under the arrangement, vessels entering the Persian Gulf would use a route passing through Iran's territorial waters, while outbound traffic would sail along the route closer to Oman. The temporary northern and southern lanes will be replaced for an initial period of 2 to 4 months. Experts believe the step marks more than a technical adjustment.
Iran thinks it won the war and it should be in control of Hormuz, have large influence in the Persian Gulf and the Middle East it did not have before. The United States is trying to reverse its defeat and is not accepting the new status quo.
The arrangement had exposed a diplomatic divide between Tehran and Washington. Iran insists the negotiations are strictly between Iran and Oman, repeatedly denying direct talks with the United States.
We're talking about the Strait.
The Trump administration, meanwhile, maintains it has been involved through diplomatic contacts. Washington has long opposed the arrangements to expand Iran's influence over the Strait of Hormuz, but the long-lasting military confrontation has carried rising cost, especially economic and political cost. Experts believe that accepting a temporary framework may have become a more practical option. Still, Tehran has made clear that the arrangement focuses only on navigation, while issues between Iran and the United States will have to be addressed separately.
There will be no substantial change in the situation in the Strait of Hormuz as long as the United States continues its malicious actions, its naval blockade, its military aggression against Iran and Iran's interests, and all the crimes it has committed during this period.
Beyond shipping, analysts say the arrangement could signal a shift in the regional landscape.
The Middle East is one of the regions where these contradictions and tensions are exploding in a very, at times violent, at times non-violent manners, but it's one of this region that has been, unfortunately, very central to the maintenance of the US-led order. The historical events that we've been witnessing are indicating that the Global South is not anymore an object to be controlled and ruled.
The new framework gives coastal states a much greater role in determining how one of the world's busiest energy corridors is managed. But experts warn Washington could still have instruments, such as the use of force and economic blockades, to counter the deal. Zhao Yunfei, CGTN.
Colombia's Abelardo de la Espriella was sworn in as the new president on Friday in the southwestern city of Cali. It marks the first presidential inauguration in the country's modern history to be held outside the capital. Spain's King Felipe VI and the presidents of Argentina, Ecuador and Chile were among the international guests in attendance. The 48-year-old lawyer won the presidential election by a narrow margin on June the 24th. The far-right politician advocates a hardline approach to restoring public security and substantially cutting public spending. He will serve a 4-year term. And that's it for this edition of The World Today. I'll be back shortly with more news from the continent in Africa Live. Do stay with us. WHO advisory group recommends clinical trial of Zaire strain vaccine in DRC. South Sudan lawmakers warn insecurity could threaten December polls. And in Burkina Faso, we look at a dance troupe empowering the youth with hearing impairments. Hello and welcome to Africa Live, only on CGTN. I'm Mahia Mutua in Nairobi. Here's what else is coming up. In business, Kenya's tea exports to Iran fall sharply in Q1 following disruptions to shipping routes linked to US-Israel war. And in sports, better late than never, African football body backs beleaguered FIFA president Gianni Infantino. We begin with our ongoing coverage of the Ebola outbreak. A World Health Organization advisory group is recommending a clinical trial in the Democratic Republic of Congo to evaluate the Iverbo vaccine. Experts say the vaccine developed for the previous Zaire strain may also give some protection against the rare Bundibujo virus. This comes as confirmed cases have now surpassed 4,000 and the death toll has reached over 1,800. CGTN's Sofia Shimechero reports.
WHO reports that its technical advisory group on vaccine research is recommending a clinical trial in the DRC for the Iverbo vaccine, the only licensed vaccine against Ebola. WHO is working with partners to begin the trial as soon as possible.
The rollout of the Iverbo vaccine will target Ituri and North Kivu provinces, the Ebola hotspots. The virus continues to spread rapidly across eastern DRC, with 4,053 cases and 1,850 deaths recorded, according to the Ministry of Health. The UN says women and children, especially in the epicenter Ituri, are being hardest hit by the outbreak, which is unfolding in a province where nearly 1 million people have been displaced by conflict.
According to the UN Children's Fund, more than 300 children have died from Ebola since the outbreak began. Children make up nearly a quarter of confirmed cases, but almost a third of all deaths.
The outbreak is also disrupting essential healthcare services in the region, as fear of infection keeps many away from hospitals.
This fear, combined with overstretched health services, is preventing many pregnant women from seeking care. Maternal deaths in Ituri have nearly doubled since the outbreak began, with about 6 women dying each week from childbirth-related complications. Ebola infection during pregnancy remains associated with almost universal fetal loss.
Health officials are calling for more awareness to not only curb virus transmissions, but also minimize preventable health risks. The epidemic has been described as the fastest spreading on record, and WHO says the true number of cases may be much higher than the official tally. Sofia Shimechero, CGTN.
Now entering its third year of conflict, Sudan is enduring what the UN calls the world's largest hunger crisis. Nearly 20 million people face acute food insecurity, while hospitals, schools and homes are routinely hit by strikes. Despite a catastrophic toll on children, aid agencies warn that the global community is looking away. CGTN's Caroline B. has that report.
As the conflict stretches into its 40th month, Sudan's humanitarian crisis deepens. The World Food Programme says about 19.5 million people are facing acute food insecurity, while 825,000 children are at risk of acute malnutrition. The UN warns that infrastructure is systematically being targeted, while disease outbreaks and acute malnutrition run rampant among the displaced.
The number of displaced continues to grow. The number of malnourished children continues to grow. The outbreaks of cholera, measles, and other diseases continues on a regular basis. The war continues to move. And never a day goes by when we don't hear more reports of hospitals, schools, markets being hit by drones, of humanitarian infrastructure being targeted. This is unacceptable. Children are suffering, children are dying, and the world is not paying attention.
Millions have fled their homes, leaving everything behind. But their new homes have brought new nightmares. Irregular aid deliveries and slashed funding mean life-saving rations rarely arrive on time.
Those aids that used to reach this place is not coming irregularly and in specific times. is today it's come, after 3 weeks, after 1 month, it's canned. And when we have children, there's no people who are working here. We lost almost, we leave everything behind us since we came here in Khartoum.
And without money to buy food, families say they are left with little choice but to sleep hungry.
We have no food here. Only those with money can eat. If you don't have money, you sit here empty-handed. I'm borrowing sugar and flour. But other than that, we have nothing to eat.
The consequences are especially severe for children. An estimated 825,000 of them are at risk of acute malnutrition.
We are suffering from malnutrition. Some children have died from it. My son's malnutrition was initially classified as yellow. Now he has turned red, which shows he's at high risk of death. My daughter died. I buried her, then stayed with my son in hospital. Since then, 4 more children have died in the emergency room.
The World Food Programme says it needs about $579 million to maintain operations in Sudan through October. But as funding falls short, humanitarian agencies warn that food assistance could be cut further, even as needs continue to rise.
I have 3 children suffering from malnutrition. I don't have the means to help them. My 12-year-old son suffered from anemia and jaundice. He died 12 days ago. People are now visiting to offer their condolences.
The UN says humanitarian needs in Sudan continue to far exceed available resources. For millions already struggling to survive, aid workers warn that every further delay risks turning hunger and malnutrition into more deaths. Caroline B., CGTN.
South Sudanese lawmakers are warning that worsening insecurity could jeopardize preparations for December's elections. They say persistent violence has prevented many of them from visiting their constituencies and raised concerns over whether candidates and voters will be able to move freely ahead of the polls. CGTN's Patrick Oyet reports.
Concerns arose during a parliamentary debate on the deteriorating security situation in Warab State, which is President Salva Kiir's home state. Legislators said violence, poor access to conflict-affected areas, and weak law enforcement threaten campaigning and voter participation. In eastern Equatoria State, which borders Uganda and Kenya, an armed group ambushed a campaign team from the ruling Sudan People's Liberation Movement, killing their driver. The delegation was traveling to launch the party's grassroots membership registration drive when it came under attack by gunmen that have yet to be identified. Meanwhile, civic authorities have only just started providing information on who is eligible to vote and how to register. With a little over 4 months to go, the electoral body says it has only received 7% of the budget required to run the elections. This is as the main opposition leader, who is now a suspended Vice President Riek Machar, who could actually challenge President Kiir, is under house arrest. Machar is currently on trial on charges of murder and crimes against humanity, which he denies. His troops are fighting with government forces in parts of the country, making some areas inaccessible for those contesting in the elections. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
Well, the UN is also warning that South Sudan still faces significant political and security challenges ahead of the December elections. Briefing the UN Security Council, UNMISS Chief Anita Kikigebo cited ongoing fighting between government and opposition forces, particularly in Jonglei State, as well as tensions in Upper Nile and Unity states. She also raised concerns over communal violence and questioned whether sufficient political trust, civic space, security arrangements, and institutional preparedness can be established in time. Meanwhile, South Sudan's government says the absence of individual leaders cannot indefinitely delay implementation of the peace agreement, stressing that the rule of law must apply to all.
We continue to advocate for dialogue, confidence-building measures, and a reduction in violence. At the same time, persistent insecurity, humanitarian pressures, and political tensions require constant adaptation. To remain fit for purpose, UNMISS is reviewing its structures, activities, staffing profile, and operational posture while strengthening early warning, mobility, and responsiveness to emerging threats.
Here in Kenya, wildlife authorities are racing to determine where the cyanide that killed at least 15 elephants in Amboseli National Park originated. The deaths have triggered a major investigation with preliminary laboratory tests detecting traces of the highly toxic substance in samples collected from the animals. CGTN's Enoxikolia brings us the details.
As the African sun sinks behind the horizon, Amboseli begins to glow. The dust turns golden, shadows stretch across the plains, and one of Earth's most extraordinary creatures begins their evening journey. For centuries, elephants have roamed these lands as guardians of ancient pathways and architects of ecosystems. Every year, thousands of visitors come here hoping to witness moments like this. A giant creature moving silently beneath Africa's highest mountain. But recently, something has gone wrong. One after another, their massive bodies collapsed across the landscape they once ruled.
For these particular cases, the ones we saw, they are getting paralyzed, especially affecting the forelimbs. The animal goes down and they are having difficulty breathing. So it could tell you that the cardiopulmonary system was affected. And even on opening during postmortem, we found most of the lesions within the lungs and the heart.
For these animals weighing several tons, death came quickly. Laboratory tests detected traces of cyanide, a poison powerful enough to stop life in minutes. But how it found its way here remains unknown. Inside the elephant stomachs, investigators discovered tomatoes and watermelons, clues scattered across a growing puzzle.
We had done the tests. We got the preliminary results from both the government chemists and also from the University of Nairobi. The test results from the University of Nairobi detected some presence of cyanide, but those were qualitative tests. So what we are trying to do now is to get the test done again for quantitative analysis, just to check on the amounts, the actual amounts that of the product were in the system.
Beyond the park's boundaries lies another world. Green fields carved into the wilderness. Kimana's fertile farms of tomatoes, onions and French beans dot the landscape. As agriculture expands, the frontier between wildlife and human settlement becomes harder to define. Elephants raid crops, farmers defend livelihoods. Here, the struggle for land has been intensifying with time. Yet, these farmers dispute suggestions that their harvest may be linked to the death.
The chemical they are saying killed the elephants. We have never seen it or heard of it here. It is not even used here in the farms.
Many here point to the fact that only elephants were affected. Their livestock ate the same crops, goats, cattle, and sheep. Yet, no unusual death have been reported.
How come only the elephants have allegedly died from the pesticide and we have not started using these pesticides today? Moreover, before these pesticides were improved from their previous compositions, using today's technology, the more harsh ones we used before have never affected these animals. We have coexisted with them yesterday, today, and many years before without a complaint of the animals dying from pesticide poisoning.
Cyanide is a tightly regulated chemical in Kenya and is primarily used in mining operations. Wildlife authorities say there is currently no evidence linking the death to illegal mining activities within the Amboseli ecosystem. The focus remains on identifying how the substance was introduced into the environment and whether the poisoning was accidental or deliberate.
The pesticides that are in the market did not contain cyanide. Cyanide could be used for something totally different, not really for crop production. So we are yet to find out exactly the source of where this cyanide came from.
The death come at a time when Kenya has been widely praised for rebuilding its elephant population. Through anti-poaching efforts and stronger conservation measures, elephant numbers have recovered from historic lows to more than 36,000 animals nationwide. According to Kenya's National Elephant Action Plan, human-wildlife conflict is now the second leading cause of elephant death after poaching. As farmers continue to expand around protected areas, conservationists warn that finding ways for people and wildlife to coexist will be critical to safeguarding the future of Kenya's iconic elephants. Enoxicolian, CGTN.
Now imagine never being able to smile. For some, that is the reality from birth. It's called Mobius syndrome, a rare neurological condition that limits facial movement. In South Africa, the Smile Foundation has helped transform thousands of lives through life-changing surgery. CGTN's Julie Shire spoke with one of the patients and filed this report.
For most people, a smile comes without a second thought, but for children born with Mobius syndrome, it's impossible. It's a rare condition that leaves many unable to smile and requires specialized care and surgery.
The Smile Foundation provides that surgery.
The actual condition is incredibly debilitating because it affects function, so sleeping, eating, speaking. And also because of obviously the facial paralysis, the children can't smile, which is, really the heart of our organization.
The Smile Foundation was born from a request by former President Nelson Mandela to help a young girl called Tando Manyati from the Eastern Cape. Her case marked a milestone in South African medicine, the country's first reanimation surgery. Since then, the foundation has supported more than 5,400 life-changing operations over 26 years, working with highly skilled surgical teams.
The procedure is incredibly complicated. Not having nerves means that the doctor needs to harvest muscle and nerve from the leg muscle and move it to the face, which you can imagine is incredibly complicated. Very few people in the country and the world can do this kind of complex surgery. It often takes about 10 hours, and that's just on the one side. So once it's recovered, we need to do the surgery on the other side.
What began with visiting international specialists has helped build local expertise in South Africa. Today, trained reconstruction surgeons can perform this highly specialized procedure locally, reducing the need for families to seek treatment abroad. But the surgery remains available in only a small number of specialist centers. Sabrine is one of only a small number of children born globally each year with Mobius syndrome. When she underwent her first procedure at just 5 years old, all she wanted was a smile she could call her own.
Well, before my initial surgery, I was not really able to move the side of my face properly. I wasn't able to smile, although my smile still isn't perfect, but it is perfect to me, and I can smile a lot better than I was before the past surgery.
Now 18, Sabrine may still need further surgery, but she has learned to live with the physical and emotional impact of the condition.
But over time, I've been able to accept it and realize that Mobius syndrome, rather than being something that is like my weakness or an insecurity, it's just a part of me that I'd have to carry with me.
For her mother, it has been a 18-year journey of medical appointments, difficult decisions, and resilience.
Sabrine's just very brave, and she's very determined to do what she wants to do. She was accepted for medicine, and she chose engineering, and because this is what she wants to do, and she's performed.
For Sabrine and thousands of other patients, reconstructive surgery can restore movement, confidence, and independence. And as specialist skills grow in South Africa, it offers the possibility that more children across the continent could access life-changing care closer to home. Julie Shire, CGTN, Johannesburg.
Now, Mali's iconic mud-dyed textile, Bogolan, is weaving a new future for women artisans and entrepreneurs. Now protected under a geographical indication status, the centuries-old craft is creating jobs, preserving indigenous knowledge and attracting growing international interest. Mamadou Tapili reports from Bamako.
For generations, Bogolan has become more than just a fabric in Mali. Made from hand-woven cotton, fermented mud and natural plant dyes, every piece tells a story of identity, history and tradition. Today, this ancestral craft is also becoming a source of economic opportunity, especially for women who are transforming centuries-old techniques into sustainable business.
Honestly, from the time I started until now, Bogolan has given me so much in return. It also allows me to provide for my children's needs. In the past, we had many customers, but today, because of the security crisis, business has become very difficult.
What I am doing to prepare for the children's future is that whenever they want to learn this craft, I train them without hesitation. I also train my own children, as well as anyone else who wishes to learn this profession.
In April 2026, Bogolan reached a historic milestone. The textile was officially recognized as a protected geographical indication, or PGI, giving it international legal recognition while protecting its authenticity and origin. Officials say the new statute will strengthen local production, combat imitation products, and increase the value of genuine Malian Bogolan in global markets.
You know, we've been pursuing this certification for years. Then last April, we finally obtained the protected geographical indication for Bogolan. Bogolan is not made only in Mali. By securing protected geographical indication status for Malian Bogolan, it enables Malians to market their Bogolan with official recognition and have it identified at the national, regional and international levels.
Bogolan has been part of Malian society for centuries. Once worn by hunters, warriors and women during important ceremonies, the fabric has evolved into a symbol of national identity. Its geometric symbols that form a rich visual language now appear in fashion collections, interior decoration, and contemporary art around the world.
Bogolan is part of our identity. It is a Malian identity. It is an art form that symbolizes the Malian people. Since 1998, we have considered it essential to do everything possible to preserve this technique so that it can be passed on to the next generation. That is exactly the work we are doing today. People often say that art is never static. It evolves with society. Traditionally, Bogolan was practiced and used mainly by women. Today, however, it is embraced not only by women but also by men because it has become an important source of income across the country. That is why this technique is taught in many workshops throughout Mali, as well as the National Institute of Arts, to ensure that this knowledge is preserved and passed on to future generations.
Across Mali, women's cooperatives are ensuring that this heritage continues to thrive. Growing international demand is also opening new markets for local-made products.
Everyone agrees that losing your culture means losing your identity. You may not be wealthy, but if you lose your culture, you lose a priceless treasure. That is why we must do everything we can to preserve this traditional knowledge so that future generations can benefit from it. Regarding your question about passing on this knowledge, our center is committed to preparing for the future. As its name suggests, this is a place where we prepare the future.
From ancient tradition to international recognition, Bogolan is proving that protecting cultural heritage can also create jobs, empower women, and preserve indigenous knowledge for generations to come. Mamadou Tapili, CGTN, Bamako.
To Burkina Faso now, where youth with disabilities are refusing to let limitations hold them back from pursuing their passions. A one-of-a-kind dance troupe has been bringing together young people with hearing impairments, teaching them rhythm through a sensory method called vibracinha. CGTN's Sofia Shimechero brings us their story.
Every morning, Suleiman Baru rides to his dance studio in Bobo Dioulasso, Burkina Faso's second largest city. He has been deaf and non-speaking since birth, but this has not kept him from his love for dance.
I have a passion for dance, and I tried to immerse myself in it even without being able to hear the music.
Barrow has been fully immersed in his art for at least 8 years now, thanks to the Faintown Dance Company. Choreographer Yaya Sano founded the troupe in 2018, driven by the goal to give youth with hearing impairments a voice and a path to social inclusion.
I noticed at school that there were students who were deaf and non-speaking, always grouped together. And while dance classes were being offered all over the city, there was no one offering dance classes in that particular setting. And it was that gap that struck a chord with me as a human being.
Sanu integrated a unique technique, vibracine, which draws on sign language and vibrations.
I work with this vibration on the floor that reaches my bare feet, and also in the space when the music is loud. There is a certain constant vibration at the tips of the feet, and I work with that element along with the vibration in the space and the sense of touch. I try to find a connection between these elements through tapping the body and the musicality on the dancer's body.
And every synchronized movement brings Barrow a zest for life.
Dancing with Yaya really brings joy to my heart, and as a deaf person, seeing the vibracine technique, the connection to the floor and the whole environment, it really helps me grow, not just in dance, but also in real life.
Through rhythm and movement, the group continues to prove that a physical challenge cannot contain a person's deepest passions. Sophia Schmichero, CGTN.
Chinese and South African officials called for stronger ties between women in the two countries during a National Women's Day reception hosted by China's consulate in Cape Town. South African National Assembly Speaker Toko Didiza said the event offers a platform to deepen people-to-people exchanges beyond government relations. China's Consul General in Cape Town, Ren Fakiang, said the two sides are also discussing future visits by women leaders and parliamentarians to China aimed at empowering women to progress together. The Thursday event featured Chinese cultural activities and performances, offering a chance for leaders to experience traditional Chinese culture.
While it's a celebration of South African Women's Day, which is August 9, which obviously mark the important struggles of women in South Africa and that important march of women who really were able to brave it all to tell the then regime that they will never carry passes. But it is important in today's context because it bridges, the two countries, the two nations at a people-to-people level, not just at government or as legislators. I mean, as much as I'm a women speaker, but I'm here as a woman invited in the celebration to really look at how we can connect as two countries at that level, but also how we can continue to empower women.
China and South Africa are good friends, good partners, and comrades, brothers and sisters. We share the same value to serve the people. We share the same strengths to work for world peace and women's progress. There are quite a lot of exchanges between our two countries, including exchange of visits by women's delegation, and we are talking about with Madam Speaker and Chairwoman and Whip that in the coming days, coming 2 years, we should arrange a delegation of women MPs and members of parliament to visit China.
Meanwhile, China and Nigeria have signed a new agreement to strengthen cooperation in film and audiovisual content. The deal was reached in Abuja during a cultural exchange event, bringing together more than 200 representatives from both countries. The agreement between China Movie Channel and Nigerian Television Authority will establish regular exchanges of audiovisual content, Chinese ambassador to Nigeria Yu Dunhai called for deeper cultural exchanges and more joint film and literary works, while Nigerian officials backed closer cooperation in production, translation and talent development. Filmmakers and writers also discussed closer cooperation. The event concluded with a screening of the Chinese martial arts film Blades of the Guardians. This year marks the China-Africa Year of People-to-People exchanges, as well as the 55th anniversary of diplomatic relations between China and Nigeria. In business, Kenya's tea industry is feeling the impact of a war taking place thousands of kilometers away. New data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics shows that the country's exports to Iran fell sharply in the first quarter of the year following disruptions to shipping routes linked to the US-Israel war on Iran. CGTN's Enoxikolia reports.
The war in the Middle East is creating ripple effects far beyond the region itself. In Kenya, new Kenya National Bureau of Statistics data shows tea exports to Iran dropped by 40.7% during the first 3 months of 2026 as war-related disruptions affected shipping routes and trade flows. Behind me are tea bushes stretching across these hills. Most of the farmers here are focused on the next harvest, but many of them may not realize that events happening more than 4,000 kilometers away in the Middle East is affecting one of the markets that buys Kenyan tea. That market is Iran, and it's taking a toll.
See, our buyers were buying tea. They couldn't ship, they couldn't travel to that Strait of Hormuz because there was a war, and there was a threat that ships might be bombed. So when we went to the auction, there was sometimes I think 2 or 3 months there was very little tea which was moving.
Although Iran accounts for roughly 2 to 3% of Kenya's total annual exports, it remains an important destination for Kenyan tea. Kenya exports an average of 100 million kilograms of tea annually to Middle East markets, accounting for 20 to 25% of Kenya's tea exports. But the war has complicated maritime trade through key shipping corridors used to transport goods between East Africa and the Middle East. According to the KNBS, Kenya's exports to Iran fell to $4.2 million in the quarter ended March 2026. In the corresponding period the previous year, exports stood at $7 million.
When the war started, majority of the ships are halted and the containers were left inside the port unattended. Some of the shippers opted to withdraw the containers, which is a very costly affair. Some of the shippers, some of the containers inside the port accrued storage, which was the burden on the shipper because nobody will waive.
And the farmers are left to count the costs. So let's put this into perspective. A farmer here in central Kenya has absolutely no control over what happens in the Middle East. Yet, when shipping becomes expensive or less predictable, exporters can move less product. And eventually, the effect can travel all the way back to the farm. Disruption to shipping routes linked to the Iran war has left about 8 million kilograms of tea stuck in warehouses in Kenya's port city of Mombasa, threatening export earnings and farmer incomes.
They were moving very little tea at the auction. Yet the tea has grown. It has been taken to factory. It has been processed. Then now when it is taken at Mombasa and it is not moving, you see even our returns will be lower. Because like now we have closed our financial year at June, and if you have a lot of stock at Mombasa, that is to say that those stocks won't be counted at this year, so the returns will be lower.
Shippers say Kenyan tea destined for Pakistan and Egypt continued moving, but only via the longer route around the Cape of Good Hope, driving up freight and insurance costs and squeezing exporters' margins.
Shippers are trying to get alternative routes. And what are these alternative routes? If they take the containers via Jeddah, then it means they have to truck the container by road to the destination that they were intended to initially, like Qatar and those other areas across that place. And that comes with the costs. It comes with the costs and with the longevity of the transit time.
For now, tea growers are continuing to harvest, and exporters are looking for ways to navigate the uncertainty, hoping that one of the key markets will soon reopen. Enoch Sikolia, CGTN.
Time for the sport. The Confederation of African Football's Executive Committee has unanimously confirmed its support for beleaguered FIFA President Gianni Infantino in a move seen at odds with its counterparts in Europe, North America and the Caribbean, as well as Asia. The top executive body sided with the FIFA president as he seeks re-election in next March. CAF's support will provide some relief to Infantino, who has faced near global condemnation for his aborted plan to establish the